Welcome to a new breed of golf live. We're all sitting here going, wait a second. Are you telling me that Spieth and Thomas aren't playing? That's right. It's Thursday of Ryder Cup week. And of course, we're fired up for the opening tee shots to get hit tomorrow morning, and excited to be able to talk a little bit about Marco Simone and also, too, about the outcome of this. We're not going to have a show on SiriusXM on Friday because that's obviously when they're going to be bringing you play-by-play. So we will be back again on Monday on SiriusXM on a new breed of golf. But in the meantime, excited to be able to assist you with understanding a little bit about some uneven lies that the players are going to face at Marco Simone. You deal with this situation. Don't really have a universal concept on how you're going to overcome these things. And by the way, many times what happens to you is when you fail on these uneven lies, you immediately blame your golf swing. And in large part, it's not your golf swing. It may be, but in large part, it's not. It's because you don't actually have an idea of how to overcome these challenging situations that you're going to deal with in the fairway, not on the tees, but in the fairways, you're going to deal with them. So I'm going to assist you with that. Before we get to all that, though, got a little bit of housekeeping to do. Remind you about our Blessed poker chip ball markers right here. We've got them in 5 different colors, as you can see. Make sure you email me at anewbreedofgolf@michaelbreed.com. Let me know which one or ones that you want, and we can have you set with that. They're blessed with birdies, pars. You're going to make a lot of putts. Make sure you get yourself one of those. Also, too, by the way, we've got hats. We've got putter covers. You've seen us talk about this before, the different colors, the different styles in the putter covers. We've got the blade. We also have the mallet. So whatever you want, make sure you reach out to us and get those to us as well. And by the way, today we're going to be giving away a set of the new Patriot Lambkin Patriot Grip. Patriot Lambkin Red, White, and Blue Patriot Grip. Make sure you become part of the show with a question and other things when I introduce my cohorts to this whole thing. Greg Ducharme is going to tell you how you can get in on getting a set, 13 of them, to get you ready for the Ryder Cup. And we're all fired up for the Ryder Cup. Speaking of Greg Ducharme, let me introduce you to the 2 gentlemen behind the scenes. You've got Steve Gibbs over there on the left. And yeah, they're giving the fake, in large part because Gibbsy's not feeling so well today. We don't know whether he's coming down with anything. It's not COVID, so we're all feeling pretty good about that. But we're not quite sure what it is, so they gave you a little fake fist pump there. Anyway, so that's what we've got. This is how you can play. Greg, how can people get a set? Only one lucky viewer get a set of the Patriot Lambkin Grip.
Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, ask a question in the chat, and this week only stay away from Gibbsy. You got those 4 things. You enter into the giveaway, and we'll announce the winner at the end of the show.
There you go. All right. So now I want to talk to you about uneven lies, and I want you to understand that in large part, the solve on the uneven lies is understanding ball position and weight distribution, which is what we're going to talk about in large part. And then we'll start talking about aim and gripping down on a club and all those things. But here's what I want you to understand. So if I take this pipe and I put it like this, I have a 6-iron in my hand. 6-iron should be just a little forward of center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ball, put it right in the pipe right there. You can see that. Now, when I get set up to hit this 6-iron, what I want you to do is I want you to look at where the pipe is going into the upper body. There will be a slight tilt away from the target with a 6-iron, a little bit more than a pitching wedge, not as much as with a driver. But what I want you to pay attention to is where that pipe is in the upper body. So with the 6-iron, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get this thing right around my left eye. So you can see right there, you can't see my left eye. You can't see the golf ball. And if I remove the club, it looks like it's a little forward position inside the logo of my shirt and just inside my left ear, but right underneath my left eye. That's what I want to try to do. So I get in here like this, left eye, and make the swing. I make solid contact. Now, what do we do when we've got the uneven lie? So let's first start with an uphill lie. So what I've got is I've got a half foam roller. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this underneath this mat just like this. This will create a 3-degree slope in this, okay? Whoops. Now, one of the things that let me move this for a second. One of the things that you're taught to do is level your shoulders to the slope. That's a really important part of having success with uneven lies. So uphill, downhill lies. You want to try to feel like your shoulders are level to the slope. The problem with that is that your shoulders are not level to the slope on a level lie. They're slightly tilted up. So in this situation, they're going to be slightly more tilted up. But here's what I want you to see when I tilt the shoulders. So I'm going to put this back where it originally was. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt my shoulders this way. Well, now what you can see is when I tilt my shoulders, now this ball position here is now outside of my ear, right through the logo of my shirt. I need to have it with a 6-iron. I need to have it in that spot right there. Well, you can see at that spot right there. Now all of a sudden things are a little bit challenging because it's under my eye. It's inside the logo, but now it looks like it's really far back in my stance. And the thing is this, if you look at the ball position relative to lower body, you're going to have a real struggle with this. If you look at ball position relative to upper body, you won't at all. So what I like to do with my players is have them set up and almost imagining that there's a straight line or a perpendicular line coming out of the mat, just like this. And then what you're going to do is get your spine in accordance with that right there. And then all of a sudden what you can see now is that when I tilt like this, now all of a sudden you can't see my left eye and the pipe is on the inside part of that logo. So now I take this and put this back here. And what is obvious is that ball position, according to my feet, is back in the stance. But according to my upper body, when I get here like this, now all of a sudden it's right where I want it to be. Well, what happens when you tilt is I need you to widen your stance. Okay, so this is a much wider 6-iron stance than I would normally play at. So I now am wider, tilted, and that 6-iron that I hit before, the apex it wasn't great. It was about 70 feet. Normally I'm playing between 80 and 90 feet. Let's just call it 90 feet, right? So now when I get here like this, and I've leaned into the hill with my lower body, now I'm here. Now I'm going to hit this shot. So now I hit that shot. Now it's going to be difficult to move your weight up the hill there. But the next thing that you're going to see that's going to happen in a very good strike, pull those numbers up, Gibbsy. And what you're going to see is my apex now climbed up to about 110 feet. You can see it right there at 110 feet. So all of a sudden, I delivered pretty good ball speed. I got pretty good distance, but the apex was at 107, and my descent angle is 48 because that apex is so high. All right, now why is it so high? Well, because I've got a 3-degree slope going up like this. It's going to launch that ball a little bit higher. So my ball would normally launch at about 17 or 18 degrees. This one launches at about 22. So it launches a lot higher off of that lie. Now, pull that shot full if you would, Gibbsy. And what you can see is that golf ball started straight and then spun to the left, or for me, to the draw side. So why? The reason why is, and I said this right at the very beginning, it's very difficult for you to push things uphill. There needs to be a momentum, a movement forward. We see this with all great players. There's a kind of a loading of the lead leg by the upper body moving into that, particularly as we're talking about irons now, right? This is what we're dealing with. In the fairway with an iron, there's a lean into that forward leg. Well, you know what? You're not going to get that same lead because when you go, it's hard to push that weight up the hill. You're going to tend to, you might push it a little bit, but you're not going to push it as much. And so what happens is your body slows and you get a little bit handsier and it closes the club face. Now, for people that slice the ball, you love uphill lies. But for people that are fading the ball or who hit it straight or possibly even draw, this is a little bit of a challenging lie because now you got to start to predict how much this is going to hook. So I look at that thing and I go, okay, that ball started. Pull that shot up again, Gibbsy, if you would. That ball started right in the middle of the basket, and then it moved. It looks like about 3 or 4 mower lines over to the left-hand side there on a pretty solid shot, 560 RPMs of left spin. So that ball moved a lot because it was in the air for so long, right? Because the high apex, but also too, because my club face closed down because I couldn't get my body to do what I wanted my body to do and what it does on a level lie. So what does that mean? What that means is that we need to aim. If you're a straight hitter of the ball, possibly a fader of the ball, not a slicer of the ball, but a fader of the ball, you need to aim a little bit to the push side. So for me to overcome this, now what I got to do is I got to aim a little bit to the push side. Now what this is going to do is it's going to distort the ball position from your perception, because at that point I'm changing my aim. I'm no longer perpendicular to that camera. I'm going slightly to the left. So it's going to distort ball position, but you understand what I'm talking about. So if you go down the line there, Gibbsy, perfect. What you're going to see is that now I'm aiming over to the push side. So then I get all the things that I want to do. Broader stance, ball is going to move back in my stance. And now I'm tilting here like this. And now we'll hit this shot. And you can see that one climbs in the air and it goes over to the left-hand side. That one actually it had 1,210 RPMs of left spin. That's a lot. Now, why did it do that? Because I didn't feel comfortable aiming that far to the right, which is why, and this is very difficult for you to do, but you got to try to practice this stuff. I haven't practiced the side hill lies in quite a while. And so it takes a little bit of time to get comfortable swinging out to that area with these alterations that you're making. That one was a lot more comfortable. And now what you're going to see is that one starts out to the right. It turns over to the left-hand side, seeking that target in the middle of the fairway. And maybe, Greg, we can move that basket up to the 175 spot. So what you start to see is that, and go back to that shot that you had there, the side spin number. That side spin number has a left ad on it. That means it's going to move to the draw side. For a right-handed golfer, it's moving to the draw side. You got to practice this. I prefer to hit fades, but now all of a sudden on a lie like this, it's going to have a bit of a turn. So let me go back over all this stuff so that you understand. Broader stance. Anytime you get an uneven lie, broader stance, wider stance. So we're going to play wider. And when we play wider with this, now on the uphill, now we're going to move the ball back, because when the shoulders get level to that slope, the upper body is moving away from the target. So the ball position should move away from the target. So I can create a similar relationship between the upper part of my spine and the golf ball, like I have when I'm on a level lie. That's what you're trying to do. You want to try to create the same distance to the ball in all those varying lies as a level lie. So in this one, uphill lie, wider stance, ball's going to go into the back. You're going to kick that lower body slightly up the hill, because that's going to give you a little bit more balance. And then we're going to aim out to the push side and make that motion. That was a very good strike there. And what you're going to see is that ball speed went up on that one. The draw happened, and that one actually was fairly close to the target. So very, very happy with that. Now, downhill lies. These are very tough for you. So what we do is we take this, and this is something that I would recommend you doing. This is a very, very easy thing to build. So what you can see here is I've got a piece of plywood under here. It's 3/4 inch ply. And then I ordered up a mat, and that mat is a 5-foot mat. The plywood is 4 feet, and all I did was fold it over. You hammer it in, and you create this uneven lie. And then I take a half foam roller, and I put that half foam roller underneath. And now all of a sudden, I've got my side hill lie. Okay, now I've got a downhill lie. Now, remember before I told you that launch angle went to 21.5. Gibbsy, pull those numbers up again. And what you're going to see is that vertical launch angle that's right here was at 21.9. So extremely similar. Just call it 22-degree launch. Okay. My normal launch with a 6-iron is like 17 to 19 degrees. So I'm in that 3-degree higher launch angle because of the 3-degree pitch of this. So now I've got a 3-degree pitch down the hill. Now we got to make some alterations to this. And what we should see is that launch angle come back down, and it might come down to about 14. Now we're going to make some alterations to this to try to get that back up in the air, because downhill lies, these are real struggles, and you need to do some things to offset that. By the way, on that uphill lie, you may need to grab a little bit more club. A lot depends on hole location, where it is on the green, and so forth. So where many years ago I was always adamant about taking one more club, doesn't necessarily mean that. A lot depends on the severity of the uphill slope. Now we get into this shot here. So I got a little bit of a downhill lie. Now let me remind you again. Here's the ball blocking, or I'm sorry, the pipe blocking that golf ball. Standard shot for me with a 6-iron. I'm going to be right about here. But in this situation, because I now have to take my shoulders and get them to the slope like that, you can see now it looks like I'm leaning down the hill. Look at how far back that ball position moved. This pipe now is right back up in here. It's off my right ear. That's a great shot, Gibbsy. So what I want to do now is I got to move that ball position forward. So the way I like to say this so that you can remember this is, in all situations, move your ball position down the hill. So if I have an uphill lie, I move the ball down the hill. If I have a downhill lie, I move the ball down the hill. But the ball position always moves down the hill. So I'm in this situation here. I'm moving the ball position to the downhill side. Now I'm leaning forward here. So now all of a sudden that ball position is right underneath my left eye again, though it looks like it's very forward in my feet. It's on that left eye, which is right where I want it. So now we hit this shot. So now I hit that shot, and let's come on up to the front here, Gibbsy, if you could, because what you're going to see is you're going to see some very interesting things change. The first one is the launch angle dropped down to 13.4. The other one was 21.9. That's 13.4. So that went way down. Again, very consistent with that. Let's just say 17 to 19, subtract that 3, and all of a sudden I'm at like 13.4. So that makes sense. Now this one had a little hook to it, so that means that it'll go even lower than that. I'm going to talk to you about this too. Ball was still 118. I hit it solidly. It wasn't a miss hit, but that ball carried 174 and it rolled out to 180. A lot more than I'm looking for out of that 6-iron, which I'm going to get to in a second. And then what you also see is that the descent angle changed dramatically, 37 degrees, and the apex also got a lot lower. I went from 107 down to 66, not quite half, but close. So how do I alter this now? Well, this is also a very interesting situation, right? Because if I play the club I'm normally going to play, I got to play that rollout. Well, we don't want to play that rollout all the time. What we want to do is we want to try to get something that launches a little closer to what we normally do, and we get something that apexes closer to what we normally get, and we get a descent angle that's somewhat close to that. And now we got to figure out, well, okay, if I do, how am I going to do all that? Well, this is pretty simple. Because now what you can do is you can take that 6-iron and you can open that up a little bit, right? So we take the 6-iron, we put a little bit of loft into the face, ball position is forward, we're leaning down that hill, same exact thing here. It looks like that ball position is way forward. It's not because of the angle of the shoulders. And now we go. And now what I get out of that shot is a shot that I like a lot. Okay. Now come on up to the front here. So now what we get is we get an apex that's 87 feet. That's where I play, 90 feet. So very happy with that. Launch angle at 18.5. That worked out exactly the way I wanted to as well. And then the descent angle is 45 degrees. Thrilled with that. So I opened up that club face. So what did that do? What did the opening of the club face do? Well, if I'd had a marker on this club to measure the speed of the club, what you would have seen was the speed of the club was pretty good. 6-iron tends to be right around 85. This I don't have a marker on, so you don't pay attention to the club head speed, but the ball speed is genuine. And what you can see is the ball speed dropped down. Why did it drop down? Because I added loft to the club. When you add loft to the club, you're going to lose some ball speed. which is why the backspin number went flying up into the air, 6,200 in that. Normally with my 6-iron, I'm about 5,400. So I got a little bit more backspin. I got a little higher launch. I got a little like steeper descent angle from that apex. And all of a sudden that golf ball flies 165, call it 166, so 165.7. So call it 166 yards. So my 6-iron now opening it up, it went the 7-iron distance. Okay. Which is an important thing that I'm going to get to here in just a second. But what you also notice is that by doing what I just did, what I did was I was able to control the rollout of that golf ball. So that rolled out about 3 feet, 1 yard, right? So that's about a 1 yard difference. So all of a sudden I can play golf like that. And by the way, because I opened the face, I got right spin, 534 RPMs of right spin. So what does that mean? What that means is I could have done a couple of different things. I could have gone and gotten a 7-iron, but I still think with a 7-iron, without opening that up into the air, because of a lot of different reasons, opening up that club, I'm not going to get that up into the air. Without opening up that club, getting it up into the air, it makes it a little bit more challenging. And so what does that mean? That means, well, you got an option. You could take your 6-iron and feather it open, play 7-iron distance, or you just go get a 7-iron and play 7-iron, play the rollout. Not the way that I prefer. What I prefer is if I have a 175-yard shot on a downhill lie, I'm not going to play my 6-iron. I'm going to play my 5-iron, feather the thing open, because I still want that club head speed, which you're going to get more club head speed with a 5-iron than you will with a 6-iron. And all of a sudden I have a chance to increase my spin, and I have a chance to get my apex where I want it. So you get more club, 6-iron to 5-iron, 7-iron to 6-iron. You get more club, move the ball position forward, open up that club face, broaden the stance, and get the shoulders to the slope. So wider stance, tilted to the slope, club face is open. Now, as I open, I'm gonna get some fade. So that means, much like on the uphill lie, I aimed out to the push side. On the downhill lie, I'm going to aim to the pull side. So now all of a sudden my aim, oh, great shot, Gibbsy. You can see how my feet are now going over to the left. Club face is open, lean left, stabilize that lower body there, and then make the swing. I didn't quite get that exactly the way I wanted there. I flipped that club face, so I lost a lot of spin. I lost a little apex there. That was an 83-foot apex, a bit of a pull there because I just made a bad swing. It happens to all of us, okay? So those are the ways you're going to combat those downhill lies, uphill lies. Now, you've got other lies that you've got to deal with, right? So one of the lies that you got to deal with is the ball that's below your feet. So I'm going to take my... And by the way, any questions that you've got, send them in to Greg. In order for you to get those Patriot grips, you heard it from the man himself, you got to get involved. So now I have a 3-degree tilt. I'm sorry, a 3% tilt of this here. Ball's now below my feet. Now, how do I deal with this ball below my feet? Well, one of the things that you've heard over time is that the ball is going to go to the low side of the hill, and it will, provided that you do the things that you're supposed to do. Because in some occasions, particularly with higher lofted clubs, sometimes that heel can grab the hill and it can spin it over to the pull side. So we're not going to deal with that right now. We're just going to make a general statement that the ball will go to the low side of the hill. Again, the ball will travel to the low side of the hill. Now what happens is this: if we go down the line on a level lie, so let me just go over to here for a second. On a level lie, the space from my sternum to the ground, I'm going to make this up, is when I'm bent over 4 feet. It's more than that, but let's just say it's 4 feet. Well, now all of a sudden, when I get over here, this ball is below my feet. That means it's farther from me than the 4 feet. Let's just say, I'm going to make this up, it's 3 inches. So that means that ball is now 4 feet, 3 inches from me. So I have to make an adjustment because I got to get it to 4 feet. So how can I get it to 4 feet when it's 4 feet 3 when I'm bent over in a normal position? Well, one of the things that we can do is widen our stance a little bit. Go face on. When I widen the stance, I'm going to get just a little bit shorter, and that's going to bring me down. The other thing I can do is I can add some knee flex. So I add some knee flex here, and that helps me get shorter. So when I get a little more knee flex, a little wider stance, now all of a sudden what I have is I've taken out that distance. And now what I get is a pretty solid shot because of the alterations in the address position. Now, here's the thing. I didn't move ball position there. I just played standard ball position, okay? Because I don't have to deal with the uphill downhill. And by the way, when you're on the golf course, you might get some mixtures of these different lies. You gotta understand what will trump another one, right? One's more important than another. And what I always like to say is that when you know if the ball is supposed to draw, the draw lies will have a greater effect than the fade lies, believe it or not. So in this situation, the ball is below my feet. I widen my stance, which I'm going to do on all these different lies. I widen my stance here. I'm going to add some knee flex. And as I add some knee flex, we go down the line, I add some knee flex. My tail gets down a little bit, and I'm in a position that I'm comfortable with. I'm in a wider stance. Now, what happens when you do what you've done is you kind of lock your body down a little bit. You don't have the freedom of making the same swing. So what you have to do is you have to remind yourself to watch your tempo, because on this particular lie, above all those lies, this particular lie, your tempo can get a little bit fast. Okay. And so what I like to do is I go, okay, watch your tempo when you get in here. So I'm in this situation, and now, okay, watch your tempo. So now I'm just going to feel like I'm just moving this club a little bit slower as I go away, and then I'm going to come through. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's come up to the front and look at what that means. What that means is that I'm not going to swing the club quite as fast. So I'm not going to get quite the ball speed. And if I don't get quite the ball speed, I'm not going to get quite the distance. So on this lie, when I have the ball below my feet, I actually like to get a little bit more club, because what I find is that the ball's going to go just a little bit shorter because I don't make as full a swing. My range of motion is not the same. Now, that doesn't mean that that's the same for everybody. And this is something that, again, you want to practice and you want to experiment with. But what I have found in my game is that when I have a side hill lie where the ball's below my feet, I need to get a little bit more golf club. Okay. The ball will tend to have a little bit of a fade. For me, you've got to hit some golf balls to discover that. It's going to happen. But what you want to do is you want to widen that stance. You want to add some knee flex. And then you want to make sure that you're watching your tempo. Do all that and you're going to be fine. And I play dead straight here. Okay. Finally, the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ball above the feet. And this is always a great one for the player that tends to fade the ball. This is another fan favorite, if you will, because this is one where you're not going to get your fade. Okay. So when you get this shot, if you're a fader of the golf ball, what you're going to do is you're going to play pretty straight. Now, for those of us that don't battle slices, maybe fades by preference, I tend to try to play this one with just a little bit of a draw. Now, there are some alterations that I'm going to make with this one. And one of them is, believe it or not, and I've been telling you in all these different lies that you're going to widen your stance. However, in this particular situation, I'm not going to widen the stance. I'm going to play it standard or maybe even narrower, depending upon the severity of this pitch. If I have greater than, say, 4, which you're not going to know, you'll just know, man, this ball's way above my feet. That's the time where I might play a little bit narrower. I might lean a little bit of weight to my lead side to help stabilize me. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to play pretty standard to narrow. What I am going to do is, just like I was talking before, when we go down the line, that golf ball, I'm trying to get to 4 feet. Well, I can't get to 4 feet this time because this thing is 3 inches closer to me. So I'm at 3 feet 9. So how do I make this so that I can hit this when I only have 3 feet 9? Well, one of the things that you can do is you can grip down on the club, which I'm a big fan of. Okay, so grip down on the club. Again, depending upon the severity of the slope. Now all of a sudden that distance feels pretty good. And then the other thing that I like to do is when I have this lie, because it affects your swing shape so much. So when I get a ball where it's above me, my spine will tend to get a little bit taller, which will tend to make my swing go a little bit more around. And my swing starts to go a little bit more around, it gets flatter. And when it gets flatter, more depth in the hands, now all of a sudden the path of the club is coming more from the inside. And when that happens, particularly here, you can hit this really fat because of the slope of the property. So what I like to do is I like to move the ball back in my stance here. So I'm going to grip down. I keep a standard width of stance unless I get a severe side hill lie. Then I might narrow up and shift weight. So I go like this. Now, when I hit this golf ball, because of how this slope affects my swing, it will put me into more of a draw swing. And what I'm going to get is I'm going to get a ball that's going to spin over to the left-hand side. What's also going to happen is, because of all that, and this is fun to watch again, what you're going to see is the ball is going to hit and it's going to release. Why? Because I'm getting left spin or hook spin. And because that ball goes back in my stance, I'm going to lose apex. I'm going to lose backspin. So I've got a lower backspin number that's at 4,600. Again, I'm typically in that 52 to 5,400 range. And the side spin there was 1,600. That was aggressive. It's probably going to end up, it's over 1,000, but I don't know that it's going to get to 2,000, again, depending upon the individual. And if you slice the ball, it might not even sniff that. It might get to, 200 or 300. But you're going to lose some apex. You're going to lose some descent angle. That ball's going to get in and it's going to release. And so in this situation, I'm actually going to take less club, believe it or not. Even though you've gripped down on it, you're going to take less club. And the reason why is because of everything that I pointed out. I'm going to lose apex. I'm not losing ball speed. Ball speed was 116. So I'm not really losing ball speed there, because when you take that club, when you move that ball back in your stance, you actually put a little D-loft into that club. So my 6-iron is starting to act like maybe a 5.5 iron. Okay. Probably a couple degrees. So let's go over this one more time, and then we'll get to some of your questions here. So what I'm going to do, make sure that that's in the green there, and it's not. There we go. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to move the ball back. I'm going to grip down on it, keep my standard. But this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to aim out to the push side. So we aim over to the push side, and then we make a swing. And I caught that a little on the toe. Again, not a great strike, similar conversation, similar result there. But what you will see, very similar result. What you will see is this. Your ball is going to hook unless you slice shots, and then you're going to play straight. But you are going to hook from when the ball is above your feet. Now, here's the standard rule that I try to apply when I get on these uneven lines, because you're going, man, this is a lot of stuff to remember. It's not that hard to remember. You just have to have a model or an assist, a statement of how you remember all this. So always move the ball to the low side of the hill, and the ball will always turn to the low side of the hill. So if I have the ball below my feet over here, it's going to go that way. It doesn't matter whether you're lefty or righty, it's going to go to the low side of the hill. And so what you do is you always aim up the hill. So when I have the ball above my feet, I'm going to aim up the hill over to the push side. The ball's below my feet, I'm going to aim over to the pull side. That's how I remember that stuff, and that's how you can remember that, okay? All right. I know we went through a lot of stuff here. Don't be afraid to go back and rewatch this stuff. And by the way, don't be afraid to tell your friends about what we're doing over here. Get them to like and subscribe to the channel. With that, I go to Mr. Ducharme and allow you to start with the questions.
Okay, first one from JP. Uneven tee boxes are very frustrating. If you can't find an even lie on the tee box, is it better for the ball to be slightly lower or slightly higher? And how do you handle that type of uneven lie?
Okay. So the way I would answer is this. This is not a great answer to this question, but this is just the way it is. One, your golf ball is sitting on a tee. So you don't have to adhere to the ground like you do when you're in the fairway. Okay. To that end, What's the shot shape? If you tend to slice and you have the ball is above your feet, that's a good thing. You just got to adjust aim. Use these principles that we talked about, but also understand, what does the hole do? Like if you've got it, like, you can put yourself into a situation where you have an uphill lie, right, or a side hill lie with the ball above your feet, and it dog legs over to the left-hand side and you're a right-handed golfer. Well, great. Just aim a little bit to the right and let it go that way. If you've got a pretty straight shot and it's an uncomfortable lie, then tee it up a little bit higher. I'm a big fan of, like, use the tee as an advantage. It is. I'm really against people that don't use tees when you have the advantage. You play a par 3, tee the ball up. You don't have to tee it up really, really low. You don't have to tee it up really, really high, but you can use the height of the tee to assist you with your shot shape. Okay. Terrible answer, but that's the way I would tell you to do it. Okay. All
Okay.
right.
This one from Joel. I usually draw the ball, and I find that side hill lies with the ball below my feet, I tend to hit it straighter. Is that because the club path is counteracting the slope?
It's not necessarily because the club is counteracting the slope, although it could. It's not necessarily that. What it can be is, let's go down the line again. So the ball is now below my feet here. What happens is that because of the alterations that I'm making with my knee flex and my waist bend, my width of stance, I'm going to tend to get an arm swing much more so than a body swing. And when you get more of an arm swing, what you end up doing is you're going to end up opening up that club face a little bit more, right? And when you get the club face to open up a little bit more, it tends to take some of that draw out. So it can be a couple of different things. But the point is, and the wise thing is that you know what those differences are. So just play those. Don't try to work around it. Just play it. The uneven lies, part of the whole thing is, what's the shot that I'm going to get? How far is it going to go? And where do I aim? Sounds like you got it all figured out, Joel. Well done. Okay.
Okay. This one from Daniel. If you have these same lies while pitching, do you do the same thing?
It's an interesting thing here, right? So if I'm hitting a pitch shot, so I'll get my 54. Ball's above my feet here when I pitch. Again, I'm a huge fan of opening up faces. So if I open up faces and I'm gripping down anyway, now I'm going to try to hit a shot. I don't really pay attention too much on when the ball is below my feet or above my feet, because I can change the distance to the ball by how I stand. So club face is a little bit open here. That ball isn't going to have hook spin. It's not going to be in the air long enough to have hook spin. That one there actually had 602 RPMs of right spin. And it did that because when I got into the shot, I just set the club face in a little bit more of an open position. So I set the club open and make my swing. And at that point, it doesn't really have a huge effect. Now, if I go down the line, Gibbsy, so if I get into this situation here, and now I stand over here like this, that's actually, that club head is well above the ground, but it's not well above the ground here, right? Because the ground is moving up to meet me. So a lot of the alteration that I'm doing on the ball above the feet or below the feet is just adding a little bit of waist bend or reducing waist bend and hitting that shot. Now, when I have the shot where I've got a little bit of an uphill lie or a downhill lie, now I'm definitely doing a couple of different things. If I have an uphill lie, depending upon if I want that ball to roll out or not, I'm going to take different clubs. So I might hit a pitch with a pitching wedge rather than a gap wedge. And if I have a downhill lie, I might use a 60 rather than using my 53-degree wedge, or I might just open it up a little bit more. But I'm definitely going to set my weight down that hill, no question about it. The shoulders are going to get a little bit more level, but they're going to get that way anyway because of the club and how low my hands are going to be relative to the club itself. So here, so I don't necessarily worry about curve on those shots as much as ball contact. And one of the things that I love about hitting pitch shots from downhill lies is it really kind of helps keep you stable, because you're not going to move your weight back up the hill. So when you get into this situation, it actually kind of helps you stay a little bit more over your lead leg. And so you're really not shifting ball position all that much. As a result of all that, you got a better chance of hitting the ball first. So Are the alterations the same? Sometimes, but no. I kind of just stick with the level lie principles. Make alterations to club selection based on trajectories and spins and hole locations and firmness of the greens and speed of the greens and all those other little different things that go on in that. Okay. All right.
Okay. This one is from Jeffrey, who's got 2 questions. Question 1, on sidehill lie with ball below the feet, do you need to quiet the lower body with a longer club, for example, a hybrid, trying to avoid hazard to the right and making a dead pull?
Okay. So now you got a situation, right? So ball's below the feet, and we've got a hazard. You said he's got a hazard on the pull side?
A hazard to the right.
Yep. So he's got a hazard to the right.
So you're trying to avoid a hazard to the right and a dead pull.
Okay. All right. So I got hazard to the push side, and I don't want to hit a pull shot. Okay. So
if I'm understanding that correctly, yes.
Yeah. And so at that point, I mean, again, I can't tell you what your handicap is. What I can tell you is that if you have a lot of fear over this, there's nothing that says that you got to go flag hunting here. And there's nothing that says you got to go to the green. Okay. What I would tell you is this. So, and this isn't the case all the time, and I can't tell you the situation that you're in that you're describing, but if the property is tilted from, let's just say for me, the right-hander, from left side to right side, high to low, so it's tilting down this way, there's 2 ways to get the golf ball to comply. One is to curve it to the right in the air, and one is to let the ground curve it to the right. So if I have this situation, what I might do is I might kind of nudge this thing back in my stance a little bit, try to hit a little flighted, chippy kind of shot, and then let the ground move the ball to the push side. Just hit a little chipper. And don't think that you've got to carry that golf ball all the way to the green. You can use the whole property. Now, and again, I don't know where you are. If you got to carry it, separate situation. But if you don't, and typically you don't, then use the ground to help you out with that. And that means that you might end up hitting a hybrid, you might not. But if you're going to hit a little chippy shot with that club, move the ball back in your stance, sit on that lead side, and kind of hit an abbreviated follow-through shot where it starts down the left-hand side. And even if you pull it, the property will kind of bring it back to the green. And because you're hitting a chipper, it's probably not going to have the distance to get all the way up there. But as long as your golf ball doesn't get far enough to go into that hazard on the right-hand side, you're going to be able to play quite successfully, okay? But this goes to a different subject, and that is fear. Fear, you stand over the shot with intimidation, and the intimidation makes it such that you're afraid of hitting it left and you're afraid of hitting it right, which means your margin for error is like next to nothing. It's like you're tightrope walking. I mean, you're going to fall. That's the way it is. So what you got to do is you got to go, okay, you know what? What's my better miss? Is my better miss to the left or to the right? And if your better miss is to the right, then favor the right miss. And if your better miss is to the left, then favor the left miss. Okay? And when I say favor, I mean make sure that if you miss on the favorable side. And so what then will happen is that you can reduce fear and you can play more aggressively. Okay? But if you're standing over a shot and you're playing with fear because right's bad and left's bad, now we got a whole new can of worms that we got to get into. And it doesn't really have anything to do with how do I deal with that shot as much as how do I deal with fear? And the simple way to deal with fear is just ignore it. I mean, I know it sounds crazy. How do I ignore fear? There's books that you can read about it. But basically, my favorite line is what Dr. Rick Sessinghaus says. And this is the guy who works with Colin Morikawa. He says, what does a good shot look like? What does a good shot look like? And so you imagine, okay, this shot looks good. It starts over on the left and it fades over to the right-hand side. Okay, now how do I do that? Well, I got to aim over there like this, and then I got to trust that this ball is going to move to the right-hand side, and I got to swing up the hill and create the spin that I want. That's how you do it. Okay, then go do it. But don't stand over there with all this fear and this intimidation of hazards and bunkers and out of bounds and all these different things. The next thing you know, you're not even going to be able to swing the golf club. So what you got to do is you got to start to think, what does a good shot look like? And then go chase that good shot. Okay.
Okay. Question 2. On a side hill lie with the ball above the feet, I always assume a pole, but often I'll hit it to the right. Is this from the takeaway and perhaps picking up the club too much?
I think what happens is that when you have the ball above your feet, it's exactly like what I talked about. Your swing shape changes, it gets flatter. And so in the down the line view, if I normally play from here, when I have the ball above my feet, it's going to throw my hands over to here. And now the path of the club is coming more from the inside, and that's going to push it out to the right. And so you say you're afraid of pulling it over to the pull side. What I would do is I wouldn't worry about that. I would just go, okay, you know what? Let's get in here and let's allow this thing to start out to the push side. Know that this is going to happen and swing to the push side. And then the turn of the ball, because the toe is above the heel, because the ground is like this, so the toe is above the heel in this fashion here. The face of the golf club, even though the leading edge is going one place, the face is actually aiming over to the more to the pull side. That will turn that ball over there and make it have a little bit of a draw to it. Okay. And get rid of that fear. Eliminate it. Okay. All right, Gregory.
All right. From our friend Peter, you touched on this a little bit, but just in case you missed it, would you ever open or close your club face to counteract the slope? Then he says, thanks, brah.
It's my man. I love you. I love you. So the answer is, would I ever do that? Sure. I definitely would do that. It's situational, but I would do that. And I do it a couple of different ways too. But yeah, I like to use the grip as something that can fight it. It's not necessarily like, let's say that I had a lie where the ball was above my feet, right? And I had this shot a lot when I was working at Augusta National. I had that privilege of playing there many, many times. And the shot on 13, that ball is pretty significantly above your feet. And so, you like, I don't want to start the ball at, the tributary to Rays Creek there. And so what I want to do is, I might not even have this over enough. Yeah, I don't think that's going to work. That thing just getting red all the time. All right, well, I'm not going to worry about that. So here's the way this is going to work. So I want this ball to not hook. How am I going to get it to not hook? The ball's above my feet. It's supposed to hook. So what I'm going to do is to what Pete talked about, I'm going to grip that club face a little bit open. So I start open. Remember, I'm going to grip down on it. I'm going to make some alterations to this. But then what I'm going to do when I swing is I'm going to swing down this hill. I'm going to cut across this with that open club face, and I'm going to fight it. The one thing that you have to do is realize that it's not going to fade as much as it would normally fade on a level lie. Because even though you've opened up this club face, because the toe is higher than the heel, it's not open as much as you think it is. So don't aim as far to the pull side. You can swing as far to the pull side as you want, but don't aim as far to the pull side, because your club face is going to masquerade exactly what's going on because of the lie. So club face is going to open up. We're going to grip it a little bit open. I'm going to swing this thing from high to low. You're not going to see anything come out of this. You're just going to get the pleasure of watching this motion and me fighting it. And that one I fought. So that golf ball actually hit into the screen right where the target is. I swung this thing about 3 barrels over to the pull side. And that, because of the opening of the club face and the pulling across, now I got a little bit of side spin, if you will, to the push side. Okay. Very interesting question.
Okay. This question, well, not the question, but the beginning is completely uncalled for. It's from Michael. Afternoon, Michael and the loser.
Yes. No, it's he's an A loser.
The loser is a little.
It's a
little
loser.
Extreme.
Yeah, because Billy's in there as well.
This is a team, and like I said to Billy,
it was
we
a
win
team
together
loss.
and lose together.
It was a team beatdown, but it was a team loss.
Like I said, uncalled for. Does hitting out of the rough affect uneven shots? Do you still get closer to the ball and open the face, for instance, like you do in a rough on a flat lie?
Okay, so the rough is something that can create some challenges for you, and I'm gonna remove that and see if my my sim is picking up the golf ball, and it's not picking up the golf ball right now, which means we need a reboot here, Greg. So let me talk to you about this particular situation. So what happens when you have a rough lie is you're going to make some alterations, and the alterations that you're going to make are so that you can basically eliminate as much of that grass as you possibly can. And so what do? Well, if I'm trying to get out of the rough, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the club face because I'm going to get steep with this, because I'm going to move the ball back in my stance and I'm going to create a really steep angled attack. All this stuff is so that I can get this club basically coming down more like this instead of more along the ground. So when I start trying to get into the ground, as I'm coming down this way, I'm taking loft and trajectory and launch all out of it. So what I want to do at that point is I want to try to add some loft in here to help me out with my challenge, right? So I get closer to this. I put the ball in the back of the stance, but I'm going to open up the club face. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open up here so that I can get steep. And this is going to come out very low because I'm not going to be, when you start swinging steeply, you don't have a way to get through all that. All the energy is going into the earth. The earth's been here longer than you are. You're not going to beat it. So don't try to. So accept the fact that you're not going to get a big follow through here. So this thing is going to go like this. Club face is going to be open. I'm going to steepen up this. And that thing's going to come flying out. It's going to be low. It's going to run out. And you're not going to have a tremendous amount of spin because the rough is going to steal that from you. But you can see that ball started 1.5 degrees to the left. There's the horizontal launch, 1.5 degrees to the left. And then over here, you have side spin 803 to the right. So my shot shape is pretty good. Gibbsy, pull that full. And what you're going to see is that ball started out to the left and it faded over to the right-hand side. Not a high apex. That thing only apexed at 46 feet. But the reason why is the angle of attack was so down. That launch angle was 12.4. On a level lie, it was 12.4. And so when you're playing out of the rough, you got to deal with the rough first. And the rough is going to do some things to it. Now, depending upon the thickness of the rough, that actually, with all that opening, and I don't have rough in here, so I'm going to get that fade. But what you might quite possibly get, again, depending upon the density of that rough, is that shot steep and not hooking. And at that point, you're not going to aim as far to the pull side because it's not going to curve back to the push side, right? And so you're going to feel like you're going to cut it. You feel like you're going to get steep and you feel like it's going to slice like crazy. It's not going to slice. It will come out low. It will come out running because steepness is going to steal some of that spin, and also the grass, the thickness of it, the length of that blade, that's going to steal some of that as well. And you're going to get a muffled strike. So that's how I kind of deal with that. Now, back to this other thing that I talked about before, the property. So when you have a lie where it's, say, a ball above, right? It's closer to your chest. The property is moving high on the right side and low behind you. Now, when the ball gets on the ground, if it's like that way all the way up to the green, then the ground's going to move the ball, and you got to account for that. If it's just in the situation that you're in and you're not, it's pretty level after that, but you just happen to be in this little spot where there was a mogul in the fairway or something like that, now you got another different situation. So you got to look at what the property is doing between where you're standing and where that golf ball is going to end up going. Okay? All right.
Okay, this one from Bergie. If you have a combination of uphill and downhill, ball above your feet, ball below your feet, which lie dominates?
Okay. So the dominant lie is always going to be the hook lie. So if I have an uphill lie, that's going to hook. It's going to go to the pull side. It's going to turn to the pull side. If I have a ball below my feet, but an uphill lie, ball below, it should fade. Uphill lie, it should draw. The draw or hook will dominate, will trump it. Okay. And so always play for the draw. If you have a downhill lie with the ball above your feet, that's going to hook as well. The hook will always dominate. So what you got to remember is in these situations, just from the original 4, right? So downhill, uphill, ball below, ball above. There are 2 hooks and there are 2 fades or slices, right? So the hooks are uphill lie and ball above. Those are going to hook. So remember that those 2 hook. They will trump the other 2 when you have a mixture, okay? The mixture, the trump always trumps, okay? Easy to remember that.
Okay. This one is for, let's go to Grant. Question for chipping on uphill lies. Where should the ball position and weight be?
Okay. So let me give you an uphill lie here. Okay. So I got an uphill lie and I've got a chip or pitch. So right here I have a 53-degree wedge. So when I'm hitting this shot, I like to chip or pitch typically with the ball position sort of middle of the stance here in my feet. But I always like to feel like that ball is off of my right ear. So when I hit this shot, it's still off of my right ear. And I'm going to strike it pretty solidly. The question is, how high is it going to go? So if I want the ball to roll, because you're going to spin it a little bit more from an uphill lie, because there's more space for you to get that club into the back part of the golf ball. I'm going to create more spin. Well, more spin with an uphill lie is going to stop the ball. So then what I would do is to go, okay, well, it depends on where the hole location is. But if the hole location is, a little ways away from me and I want to try to let it roll out a little bit, now I'm going to go to a pitching wedge. And when I start to go to pitching wedge, that one spun at about 5,000. It launched at about 28. So now I have pitching wedge. And now I hit that shot. And what you're going to notice is that golf ball didn't land quite as far, but look at the spin rate. The spin rate now is at 3650, and I still got a similar launch angle, 27, but by going to a club that has less loft, I get less spin, and now I get more roll. That one there rolled out about 7 yards, okay? You won't get as much roll as you would get on a level lie, but you're going to get more roll than a more lofted club. So a lot depends on the situation, where the hole is, what does the green look like, all that stuff. But as a rule, get a club that's got a little less loft, and depending upon how much of a slope or how steep that lie is, it can have a almost a 1 club difference. So if you normally would play a 60-degree wedge to roll out 40% of the way, you could go to your 53-degree wedge and it would roll out 40% of the way. If it's a 50-50 thing, your pitching wedge, which might be a 60 rollout, will now be a 50 rollout, and you can do that way. So there's a couple of different ways you can do it, but you got to know what your rollout percentages are with each one of your clubs in order for you to really have a chance of getting that shot close to the hole. Okay.
Okay, this one from Emilio. Can you hit practice shots with the ball above the feet to fix an out to in swing path?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And in fact, one of my favorite drills is a drill that I'm going to be doing a lot of over the next couple of days, because right now, one of the things that's happened to me is I'm having a difficult time getting over to my lead side. So what I like to do is I like to take, this is one of my favorite drills. And what I love about using slopes of property to assist you with your golf swing is you can do this when you're out on the golf course. Now, you don't want to be slow when you play, but you do want to use property to assist you. There is no totally flat piece of property that you play golf on. There's always going to be uneven lies, and you can use them to help you with your swing. So when I'm working on getting my body to go through the shot, I just kind of make swings on downhill lies. And downhill lies, because the property is wanting me to throw, or is wanting to throw me down the hill, what I'll do is I'll just make swings where I'm going down the hill. If I have a golf swing that has a lot of slide in my hips and I know I got to get rid of them, I get on a downhill lie. Because on this situation, it's just natural for you to lean a little bit more to the lead side. Well, you're not going to then take your hips and slide them up the hill. You're going to stay pretty centered here. So if you look at where I am, let me take this pipe and I'll put this back here somewhere and create something that you can see. So that pipe right there. So I get set up where my right hip is on that pipe right there. You can see that. Now, if I slide, I block it out, right? So I get in here and all I'm going to do is just feel like I'm not going up that hill. And now that space opens up between my hip and the PVC pipe, and I just hear. So now I go, okay, what does that feel like I'm doing? Well, now it feels like my lead knee is going that way. It's not going this way. So now, well, that feels pretty good. The rotation is pretty good there. And now I'm through. And then you go ahead and you make those practice swings on that hill and then go to your ball, make that swing. You've done this a couple of times, so you know what it feels like and looks like. And then when you make those adjustments, all of a sudden ball striking can get a lot better. So I'm a huge fan of using slopes of property to assist with golf swings. And like I said before, when you have that ball above your feet, that's going to naturally want to flatten your swing. And all of a sudden you go, man, when I'm there, it feels like my trail elbow is really close to my side back here. So now we take this thing and we get that feeling there down the line. Yeah, that elbow stays really low. So when I go like this, man, my arm flow, look at that. It's underneath my shoulders. That's flat. That'll help me. That's how I'm going to use that slope. So by all means, please use slopes of property to assist you with your golf swing. Okay.
Okay. This one from Rich. We're going to get away from some of the uneven lie stuff here. I get very quick with my tempo and going through the ball. Can you give me some tips or drills to work on or improve my tempo? Okay. So you thought you were going to get away from the uneven lies, but you're not, because this is, again, one of my favorite drills is when you're struggling with tempo, you're struggling with getting this body to lead, because tempo is basically your arms and hands taking over from your body. And one of the reasons why that would happen is that you're not making the proper backswing. Well, when you get set up and you go into this tilting motion, which a lot of people get too much lead side oriented. Well, now you get a side hill lie like this, and now all of a sudden your body, you kind of get a little wider, you kind of get a little tilted, and all of a sudden your body has some real freedom to rotate. In fact, I've seen people make much better rotations on uphill lies than on level lies, because what happens is that the body now can support that a little bit easier. The way your shoulders are tilted, it offers a little bit more rotational capabilities. So one of the other things that I love about this is you will tend not to hit from the top on this lie. What you'll tend to do is your body just instinctively is going to want to push off that, because you don't want to fall down this slope. So what you do is you make this turn like this, and then your body is going to tend to stay back, which will smooth out your tempo. So I like practice swings when I'm looking for tempo on an uphill lie. Now, the other thing that I like to do when I'm looking for some tempo is I like a drill where you get two golf clubs that are neighbors, and neighbors are clubs that are close together. So I have a 6-iron, I have a 7-iron. If I had a 7-iron in my hand, I might have an 8-iron. You could also use a 6-iron, but I like neighbors. And then what I want to do is I want to make a swing on a level lie, not the uphill lie. I want to make a swing where these clubs are kind of working together and I get no clanging.
no noise. When you start to do this, what you start to get is some rhythm, and you start to feel the club and its weight and its transition, because in effect what you're doing is you're swinging the club with one hand. You're trying to do it in sync with the other one, but what that does is that it naturally will move the body slower. It will naturally move the arms and hands slower, and you'll start to get a real rhythm in that swing. And then you imagine that you've got both of those clubs in there. Now, again, I have an uphill lie. So now I've got both clubs. And all of a sudden, I really feel this rhythm. So now I'm not doing anything other than just thinking about the tempo and the timing. And it's a pretty smooth and balanced motion that you're going to get. So both of those two can help you. A little bit of an uphill lie and getting a neighboring club, and swing those two independently together. And I think you'll understand, particularly on a golf course too, which is why I love those two drills. You can do those when you're in the middle of your round, and now you got a chance to find that tempo in the middle of the round. Greg, let's take one more question here, and then also too, let's announce who our winner is.
Okay, great. So first I'll ask the question, and then we can announce the winner after that.
Okay.
This is from Peter. Good morning from New Zealand.
Awesome.
Early Friday morning. I'm having trouble with my stance and posture when I'm on the tee box. Can you go over some basics for the tee box and setup position?
Okay, so I'm going to assume, first of all, thank you for joining us. I'm going to assume that you're talking about with, say, a driver. Because I have a 5-wood out, I'm going to use that. So what are some of the basics of this? Well, the first basic is ball position is always in the upper body. So what I want you to do is I want you to feel where the ball is relative to your nose or eye or ear or chin or shoulder or logo, whatever. So I want that ball position to be, right around the logo of the shirt. So I'm somewhere right there, which is kind of about where I want to be. The second thing that I want to feel is I want to feel that in the address position, particularly with a driver, that I've got just a little bit of lower body weight favoring the lead foot. It's about 55%, 45%. I don't want to be sitting back here where I got a lot of weight on my trail foot. I want a little bit more weight lead foot, about that 10% difference. So 55, 45 is about what I'm looking for, because again, you got to counterbalance this tilt that's going to take place, which is when you hold the club with a longer club, you don't have as much forward bend, you have a little bit of side bend. And as you add that side bend, you get a little bit of tilt in the shoulders. So when we get set up and you have that side bend, now you're looking like this. I want you to feel like you're kind of leaning into that golf ball with your lower body in that fashion there. And then that's going to help brace you for that backswing. You'll be able to coil up and do what you want to do. So for me, you got to make sure that you understand the ball position and the weight distribution. And then the other thing that you want to pay attention to specifically because of that ball position being so far forward, let's go down the line here, Gibbsy, is the alignment of your body. Shoulder line, hip line, knee line, and toe line should be parallel to one another. I don't want to have toes way over here and shoulders way over here, and I don't want to have toes way over here and shoulders way over here. I don't want those lines to be misaligned. I want them to be aligned properly. So I want them to be square. And one of the things that you can do is you can just feel it in your feet. So when I take my body and I open it up like this, I feel a lot more weight on the left heel than I do on the right heel. The weight in the right foot feels like it's much more towards the toe because my hips have now gotten a little bit more open. So this right hip is now sort of in line with the arch of that trail foot. When I go to the lead foot, the hip is outside of the heel. And that's why there feels like there's more weight on the heel side there. So you'll feel it in the balance in your feet. And when you get in there and you start to feel that little drive into the lead leg, I almost feel like this is not what happens, but this is what I imagine, that I've got a piece of paper and I'm pinning that piece of paper up against a wall with my hip. So I kind of pin that against the wall with the hip. And what that tends to do is it tends to take for me personally, it tends to take those knees and get them parallel to the toes. It tends to take my hips and get them all parallel. And then it tends to take my shoulders and square them right up to the toe line there. And so as I start to pin this a little bit, now all of a sudden I feel the lines of my body kind of parallel to one another, but I really feel it in my feet. And so those would be the things that I would tell you that you would pay attention to in the address position when you get a little bit of a longer club. Don't be afraid. In fact, embrace the idea that you're going to get some side bend. That's a really important part of this. Okay. Interesting question. And thanks for joining us from New Zealand. That's awesome. You have no idea what that means to me. We keep trying to do this all the time. Please tell your buddies about what we're doing over here. We're trying to help everybody play better golf, and we're trying to do it where it doesn't cost you anything. You get to do it with us, and that's why we're so proud to be affiliated with Morgan Franklin and the Morgan Franklin Transformation Center, and obviously the assist of all our partners, Lampkin and FootJoy and Titleist and everybody. By the way, Gibbsy, I don't know whether you can get a shot of those shoes. Go down the line there. Go get a 7. There you go. Look at those things. Zoom into that. I just ordered these up for the Ryder Cup, obviously supporting USA as best I can. We put a little bit of, and I don't miss that, because what we have is we've got a nice blue shoelace in there. And all you got to do is go over to footjoy.com and you can order on MyJoys, whatever style you want. So we appreciate everybody, and certainly appreciate you joining us over there in New Zealand. Please tell your friends, and everybody, please tell your friends, subscribe to the channel. You guys are doing great. We're growing the channel, and as we get more and more people, we can continue to grow more and more and more. We start being able to do more giveaways, and it becomes way more beneficial to all of you also. Please share what we're doing. Speaking of giveaways, Mr. Ducharme.
And speaking of red, white, and blue, they match your new
Patriot grip. That's
the
right.
Patriot grip. The winner, JP Vincenti. So
congratulations. That's awesome. Congratulations, JP. So JP, you're going to send an email to us at anewbreedofgolf@michaelbreed.com. Make sure you include an address for us, and then we're going to get you out a set of those Lampkin grips that, I mean, I love them. And I know you're going to love them as well, the Patriot grip. And I don't know whether you're going to have them in time for the opening tee shots tomorrow morning, but we will get them to you as quickly as we can. In the meantime, I want to say a special thank you to my two friends, Mr. Ducharme and of course, Mr. Gibbs. Thank you, gentlemen. Gibbsy, great job today. A little bit under the weather, but still fighting the good fight. And remind you all about the things that we've got here. We've got our Blessed Poker Chip ball markers. We're selling those for $6, 5 different colors in there, including the red and the blue and another blue. So don't be afraid to pick those up. They're $6. You can email me at anewbreedofgolf@michaelbreed.com. We also have the putter covers and the hats. We still have those in stock. So excited to be able to do that. And you can see those right there, the red, white, and blue, and of course the tan hats. And like I said at the beginning of the show, we're not going to have a show this Friday, tomorrow, because we're going to be all sitting there watching the Ryder Cup, rooting on Team USA where we are. We're rooting on Team USA and looking forward to what is one of the, it's an extremely unique event, and one that we look forward to whenever they play it every other year. And 30 years since the USA has been able to win that Ryder Cup over on the air quotes. And those who listen to the show all the time know how fond I am of foreign soil, which you're going to hear a ton of this week. So anyway, we're not going to be there Friday, but we will be there on Monday to discuss what took place with the Ryder Cup, and obviously talk about Scotty Scheffler's putting, the adjustments that he's making, the steps that he's taking with Phil Kenyon. I'm bullish on. I think it's going to be great, and I hope it leads to a great week for him and a great week for USA. In the meantime, thank you all so much for joining us here. I hope everybody has a great weekend, and we look forward to talking with you on Monday on SiriusXM and A New Breed of Golf.